Never Hip a Lame podcast.
Once again, we are back with another episode of Never Hip a Lame podcast. I'm your host, Tristan Taratino, and today I got none other than Flwr Chyld in the building with me. What's going on, bro? Appreciate you coming through. Appreciate you sitting down with me.
Bless.
First and foremost, for my guests who may not be aware from you hail from the Atlanta area.
Yes, sir.
I read in one of your interviews you don't like to be boxed in as far as the type of music you make, but I do know that it's heavily influenced in jazz. So,
right.
If you could just give them a quick little tidbit or quick little synopsis of you before we get in this interview, just so they can better be acquainted with what it is exactly that you bring to the table when it comes to your music.
So for those who don't know, because a lot of people sometimes get a little confused, which is understandable, I'm a producer, artist. In the same way you would look at K Tronada and how he releases his music is the same way I do. But yeah, like you said, a lot of my sound is rooted in jazz, neo soul. That's the shit I grew up on. So yeah, man, that's pretty much what it is.
I mean, you said put it on the head, because I know just coming over here listening to a lot of your music, obviously like I've done in the past, you and K Tronada, like y'all do like a good blend of mixing, I wouldn't say different, but maybe more so unique sounds.
Right.
You especially, I could tell like there's a heavy Outkast influence as far as the production and things like that. But with being a producer and an artist, is that somewhat a juggling act, or do you feel more comfortable in one space versus the other?
So I kind of gotta it kind of depends on what room I'm in or what's required of me. So if it's just me, I'm the producer / artist. You know what I'm saying? So I'll bring somebody in on a track that I create and release it under my name. But if someone is seeking out something from me specifically, it could be like they want to feature me as a producer artist, or they want just production placement from me just as solely a producer, because that's been a thing in the past as well. So it just kind of depends on what people are asking of me, but I know what I want to do at the end of the day is just release music under my name.
So was it always more so when someone is, because I guess we're going to get into collab first and then your personal process. So when someone reaches out to you to collab, what is that normally, that process like? Because with your sound, it's very unique and it's very, I would say, more forward thinking with the times. So is it more so when you can hear somebody's earlier music that they're going to fit well with it? Or for you, is it like trying to find a place where y'all meet in the middle?
So it kind of depends on who's asking me. Okay. So you got people who I don't know at all. And obviously they're looking for the Flwr Chyld sound. And then you have people who I have relationships with already who are just looking to kind of create good music and just put it out. It's both are intentional, but when the homies reach out, it's a different process than when just someone who I don't know or I'm not familiar with their music reaches out. So like if someone who I don't know reaches out, that process typically looks like, you know, like what vibe are you looking for? And sometimes they'll be like, oh, I want a track like this that you put out. You know what I'm saying? And then, you know, it's not hard to duplicate. I just kind of like give them my sauce, because that's essentially like what they're looking for at the end of the day. But when it comes down to me collaborating with like my friends, like a lot of my creative peers on the indie side of the industry, I'm always looking for like a new challenge and to kind of create not a new sound, but just good music, not just like, oh, I want to duplicate that song that you put out a year or two ago.
I mean, but do you ever feel like when they're saying, I want this specific song, I want you to reduplicate that, like you're having to re-repeat yourself? Like, does that ever, like, not annoy you, I guess would be the word, but just like, you don't want to do nothing outside the box, you don't want to create something new?
No, not really. It don't bother me as much now, because it's just like I know what people are looking for, you know what I'm saying? Like I watch a lot of like Neptune's interviews, and I can see that they kind of get bothered by like when people reach out to them, they're like, oh, I want that specifically. Like for me, it's like, yo, if I don't see this relationship kind of going a certain direction, then I know like what to give them. You know what I'm saying? But like I said, if it's the homies, they're coming, we're both kind of joining forces to create some totally different shit all together. Right.
So with the past 2 projects, let's go into Flow first.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of growth, in my opinion, from the previous project into
Appreciate
that.
Appreciate that.
Nah, of course. And I think I could tell a little bit more, like, the people you were working with, you might have been a little bit more comfortable with, because it was a little more, not to say the last project before that wasn't, but it flowed almost like a storybook. It's from start to beginning. So in making that piece of work, like, what was that process like? Like, what were some of the things that went into that?
Little backstory. I had just graduated college and I was dealing with like anxiety and depression. So it was like intentional.
Okay.
That's why it sounds that way. It sounds like a story. That's why like there's a whole thing behind like flow, because like I'm into astrology but not like super deep into it, but I know a little something. Yeah. Okay. I don't get too crazy with it. Yeah. No. I don't get too crazy with it, but I'm a Pisces, so hence the symbolism with the fishbowl and stuff like that, the title Flow. During that time, I was figuring out a lot of things in life. It took like about 3 or 4 months to kind of get over that hump until I got comfortable with like understanding like how this life shit go. Like, yo, no matter what comes your way, you just got to continue to just move regardless what comes at you. So, yeah, but that project was super intentional. That's why it kind of sounds like a story. And honestly, the writing process with that, each artist, I don't know what was going on in the world, man, or what each artist was going through, but everybody was going through something. That's why that project sounds like, I guess, deep in a way. You know what I'm saying? I'm just like, damn, she talking about a breakup. This person sound like they talking about some childhood trauma stuff. I'm like,
I think for me as a consumer and a listener, I've always said this. You know that shit. Like, I say, when an artist is going through something, we get like the best out of them. Granted, I don't want all my favorite artists to go through stuff, but it's like some of their best work comes from a place of despair, comes from a place of pain, comes from a place of like, I hit rock bottom, I have nothing else to do, so I just like engulf myself in my process, engulf myself in my music, and it felt like that. Like, granted, I didn't know that's what actually to do in this project, but hearing it for the first time and after that, I was like, it just flows like it was like therapy almost.
yeah.
Like, that's exactly what best way I can say it. It was like therapy for everybody on that song, everybody in that project. So now that I know that, it kind of makes sense. Granted, I'm glad you're out of that.
Yeah.
Got past that.
Yeah, that post grad life is hell, man. Like, I don't think enough people actually talk about it. Like, post grad, like, depression is an actual thing.
No, for sure.
It's definitely a thing.
It's something that I think, but we've seen it. I wouldn't say every day, but we've seen it more times than not. It's like one of the things that you know, at least. Let's say if you have a group of 8 friends, at least 2 of them, 3 of them have been through that at some point. You may not have been able to pick up, or you may have, but a lot of people turn to music, and I think a lot of people have their process and have their thing where it works like that. But with, now that I know the process of doing everything, the single that you also dropped, it was also dope as well too. How do you pick singles? Like, how do you pick even the songs you put on your project? Like, how does that work?
All right, so I gotta take you back to Iridescent Love, because that was kind of like the world's intro to me, just all together, because I had music out before then, but like a lot of musicians, I don't count that music, because I don't count that music, because that, I felt like that wasn't my official intro, you know what I'm saying? So I count Feel the Breeze as my like first official single, for real. Some people count Rainfall, but yeah, it's not as near and dear to my heart as Feel the Breeze was, because that's when I took full control of my career. So that's why I always go back to Feel the Breeze as like the first single. So that song, it was just a really strong record. Like, I was just working on, side note, I actually hate using that word record, because everybody is using it right now, but I'm gonna just say song. But yeah, I just really loved it, man. Like, it felt good. And then after that, during that time, my focus was just trying to make good music. So Love to You came. It's just, I don't know. I was just trying to make, another word I hate using, but I was just trying to make vibey feel good stuff, man.
Vibes getting over there.
Yeah.
I hope we don't use that going into the new year.
Exactly.
I hope that goes away.
Right. But Iridescent Love, man, it was just kind of like whatever songs felt good in my heart.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the ones that I put out. But it was also kind of like, yo, whoever responds first to this beat that I send them, and whichever one we get done first, that's what we gonna put out.
So it's almost like a rat race in a sense.
Yeah, kind of, sort of.
I think I like that process. Like
yeah.
Whoever get to it first, that's just who we rolling with.
Right. Because Love to You, if you listen to that song, it sounds more like an album or an EP cut. It doesn't sound like a single.
Yeah.
But I'm grateful that it went up the way that it did, man. So that's what happened with Iridescent Love. Flow, I told my manager, I was like, we only putting out one single.
Okay.
I was like, because this is a story. I'm not trying to be single heavy with this. You know what I'm saying? I haven't released that many singles. Now that I'm glad you asked that question.
Yeah, because that's the first thing I noticed. Like, I think in being introduced to a new artist, or even just some of them gonna put new artists, you see like you can kind of tell what I call where they started versus when they got that real like, okay, we need the album from you. With you, it was like, oh nah, he must have just always had the green light because he doesn't really have singles. He doesn't really have like all your top songs is like your cuts from your album, your cuts from your project, except for the most newest one and the ones you talked about. So that's why I was like, is he just not believing that, or is that just a conscious thing it is?
Man, it just, I don't know what it is. Honestly, it's just, I think my listeners kind of determine that at the end of the day, because you can release something as a single, but I'll take this for example. My mind didn't go up the way that I thought it would. In my mind, all pun intended. Like it didn't go up the way that I thought it would. It did well on other platforms, but yeah, that, by the way, that song was just, I wanted to have like a follow-up single to Flow to kind of close up the year. And if you notice, like, it has like very similar cover art to 2020's like EP rollout stuff. And yeah, when you move forward to like, so last two singles, like Lucky Me and Feel Your Love, super intentional. Like, these are singles from the album.
Okay, so you did that on purpose.
Those were like probably the most like intentional songs I've ever put out. Like, all right, I'm letting y'all know, Lucky Me, it's single number 1 from the debut album. Feel Your Love, single number 2 from the debut album. And they're super upbeat records. So that's another thing I've always thought about, because people, you know, like you mentioned earlier, I feel like sometimes people will try to box you in. It's like, he makes smooth, mellow, like vibey music. I hate all those words, but from a consumer standpoint,
so many different times.
Yeah, from a consumer standpoint, I get it. But as a musician, I'm like, nah, I wanna try something else. So that's why those singles sound the way that they sound, and that's why I put them out. Yeah.
So with that, and we can like tailor back into the fact that you're from Atlanta and things of that nature. The resurgence of your city, of your area, with the way that y'all have a chokehold on the music scene. What was it like, I guess, producing and also being an artist, not only in the come up of that, but even now where it seems like y'all have solidified yourself as well? Was it one of those things where it made it easier to make music, or was it like, damn, now everybody is kind of like starting at the same time, and it's like I have competition and no real foothold?
Are you talking about Atlanta specifically?
Specifically, yeah.
I'm gonna be completely honest with you. I think that there's still a lot of work to be done, man. There's still a lot of things like that are just building all together. Like, we're getting a lot of foundational things together. I can go on about that for days, man. But it's nice to see that people like are recognizing what's happening there.
Really? Okay.
You know, and I feel like I kind of have a responsibility to kind of help that grassroots movement, so to speak. So yeah.
Well, I take it as, and it's interesting you said like recognize it, because I think even in the history of music, you can make a solid argument that since 2000, y'all had y'all place in music with a lot of dance records, a lot of like the dances that people up north did and around the country did.
Right.
Then there was this subtle switch where trap music took over, especially in the mixtape part of it. And then it was like, okay, we're here now.
Right.
And so the reason why I ask is now because, again, not boxing you into any of that, your sound coming from that area is very against the grain. And that's why I asked, what is that now like to make music in that particular scene? Because I feel like, is it a thing where it's like, damn, you're from Atlanta, but you make this? Or is it like, okay, we're just going to look at you as a separate entity and you just happen to be here?
It's a mix of both.
Okay.
It kind of depends. Like, so you have the outsider's perspective for people that don't live there, and then you have like an insider's perspective because we have like a real community there. Mm-hmm. Like if we have a show, folks are gonna pull up.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? Because they understand what's happening. But the outside perspective is just like it kind of looks like he's just kind of there, but we're all in the same spaces, man. Like these people, like it's you can. I'm trying to think. I don't even want to like say any names, but it's a bunch of like dope niche artists like on the underground hip hop scene that you'll see these guys at the same functions that I'm at and a lot of other like musicians are at that don't make trap music. Okay. You see what I'm saying? So it's all one community and we support each other because I've had people who will probably never work together just off the strength of like the type of music that we make, but we speak to each other and we still compliment each other like, yo, like I appreciate what you're doing. There's an appreciation like from both sides, like I really like what you're doing, keep it up, and someone to tell me that. So it's all love, man. We definitely have a strong community there when it comes to hip hop versus R&B. It's there is no verse. It's just kind of like everyone acknowledge like who's talented at the end of the day.
I mean, you're right, but there's always that argument of hip hop versus R&B. And
yeah.
Funny enough, y'all have had a very strong foothold in R&B before any of rap, any of that situation.
Definitely.
And I read in one of your earlier interviews, you're a huge like Tyler Creator fan. His last project with DJ Drama and being able to manifest that. I think ever since Flower Boy, he's been able to really push what I believe the music he always wanted to make and really be an artist, not so much like pigeonholed in. But what did you think of the last project in particular, that as a fan or even just as a producer?
I'm so glad you asked me this because I was literally like the last Tyler fan to listen to that album.
Really?
I've always been this way, man. Like anytime like Flower Boy came out, I waited 2 weeks, listened to it, because I don't like to like. People can say like, someone else's opinion won't affect mine, but it subconsciously does.
Yeah.
So I just let people tweet what they wanted to tweet. How long has the album been out? Like a month now?
I would say probably a month.
Like a month?
A solid month, yeah.
So this is the longest I ever waited to listen to a Tyler album.
Okay.
But I was just at a coffee shop last week. I was like, nah, it's time to listen to it. Like I don't see like the rollout stuff as much anymore. But yeah, now that I said that, I think that he's progressed every album since Flower Boy.
Yes.
So that's a really good interpretation on your part. Like he's one of the only artists I feel like that gets better literally every single project. Like obviously like you have people, you have your fan favorites. I think Flower Boy is the fan favorite because it's really easy on the ears. But for me, Igor, I was like,
yeah, Igor.
He took a step.
I put Igor above Flower Boy because Flower Boy I could see him making. Igor and this last project seemed like not so much off the wall, but first and foremost, let's actually take 2 steps back. To have DJ Drama sponsor your tape in all is nostalgic, period.
Yeah.
It's something that I thought literally died out for a long period of time because, again, without mixtapes, there wasn't no need to have a sponsored tape.
Right.
So for him to now have a sponsored album or EP, whatever he wants to call it, was monumental for that. But those 2 last projects, there was still growth in that, both on the production side of it and also for, I would honestly probably have to say, Tyler's side of it. And that's why I asked you on the production side of it, like how did it hear, or how do you hear music when you listen to your artists?
I try to, like from a musician standpoint, like you're trying to look at it from, I guess, it's all subjective. It's never going to be objective. Trying to figure out how I want to answer your question. because I love backstories with music. I think that's really probably the most important part when you like break down music. But man, I'm stumped right now because I like just listening to each project. I'm just always in awe.
Yeah.
Like, and I'm not trying to like make it seem like I'm a super fan or anything like that, but like, you know how niggas always like, oh yeah, he's a genius. Like, no, Tyler's a genius.
We throw that word around a lot, but you know who actually fits that definition.
Yeah.
I would say that. And I say he's definitely making a strong case and a strong argument to say, no, you're going to put me here.
Definitely.
And I'm going to show you why I should be here.
Right. And production wise for Call Me If You Get Lost, like, I think your evolution is growth.
Okay.
You see what I'm saying? Because if you do the same thing, if you're doing the same thing and you're getting slightly better at it, that's growth, but it's not like monumental growth the same way as like, oh, like, this is still him. This is just an extension of him. And I try to like model my career after people who do that because this is always inspirational. Like Solange does it. She's another example. Like you,
very great example of that.
like you have. So she had 2 albums that were very similar, but very different at the same time. You see what she did with the art direction, like. When I Get Home, it was a step up, but it still had a lot of similarities with like the overall creative direction and the sound altogether.
I think a lot of people is expecting like another seat at the table too.
Yeah.
But I want to say When I Get Home was more so of an ode to where home was for her. Definitely.
Right.
The seat at the table was like an introductory back into this. Like, I'm letting you know, like, I can do this. I'm letting you know that I'm here. When I get home, I'm now bringing you into my. I played the game of y'all world. Now I'm gonna bring y'all to mine. And you brought up a great point about how you are when it comes to that. So I always ask any musician or producer that I interview, you know, top 5 or if and they could come up with a dream project, who would it be? With you specifically, because you do have a hand in both. If you could pick 2 other producer groups or producers and 2 other artists to then make a project with, who would it be?
I'm very selfish when it comes to my production, man. I'm not gonna lie. I'm like my own A&R, so like I like to pick artists.
Okay.
I can give you 5 artists because I like being challenged. But I'll give you this. I'll give you a couple producers. I'll give you like 3 artists who are like hella random, but have had a huge influence on me. Yeah. And this doesn't have to be like, nah. It could be for one project. Obviously, we just talked about Tyler.
Yeah.
We're going to count Neptunes as one.
Yeah, you have to.
We're going to count Neptunes as one.
Other, so, you definitely have to do both.
Yeah. I don't know why I always think about this, man, but it's always weird that I mention her name, but I would really love to work with Marsha Ambrosius because I think that she has, like, one of the most unique voices ever. I feel like she's just kind of, like, one of those under the radar artists in a sense. Like everybody knows, you know what I'm saying? But I feel like no one's has really like given her flowers. I'm trying to get her on my debut album, bro. Like I'm trying to make that happen, bro. Yeah, man.
Neptunes, Tyler, Marsha Ambrosius.
Bro, I would love to work with Future. Not my bias to like Atlanta, man, but he's an artist.
No, he is.
He's legit an artist, like an all around artist. Like this man, he's awesome. Damn, I wanted to say Thug too, cause he's an artist as well. But we gonna go. I just gotta say Dwelle, man. He's probably had like the biggest influence on me, and a lot of people don't know that. But he's at the root of a lot of my sound.
I respect you more for even knowing him because I think a lot of people don't. I think he was in a part of the neo soul era where he really got like.
He's a legend.
Yeah,
he's a legend.
You don't know that unless you really go back because I think so many people was caught up in like the soul Aquarian. So it's like the fact that he wasn't a part of the supergroup. It's like, oh, he was there. No. He was there in the front. It's just that we were so busy paying attention to the monster that it was when they all came together. So
if you know, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
Exactly.
if you know, you know. Because like I could sit up here, I could say D'Angelo, I could say Erica, you know what I'm saying? But I have to give credit to Dwelle because I listen to his music almost every day. I don't listen to Erica and D'Angelo every day. I could, but when you see my like Spotify or Apple Music rap at the end of the year, Dwelle is at the top of that list every time. Every time.
I appreciate that. So you did come up here. You do have a show tomorrow.
Mhm.
What are you expecting from that? What are you expecting the crowd and everything like that? What's the main point of just coming out and want to introduce people to your music?
Man. So a lot of people don't know this, man, but so because 2020 happened, so you didn't get an opportunity to see me perform.
Yep.
But 2019 was still kind of like a year where everything was brewing for me as far as like performances went. So typically what that looked like was me on keys and synth bass and other like synth instruments, drum programming. My boy Alex, who plays guitar on all my stuff, that's my bro. And my homie Shane as well, that's my bro as well. He plays bass. So that's what the full band looks like. Electric guitar, bass guitar, keys, synth instruments, and drum programming. But unfortunately, I wasn't able to do full band for this gig. So this is something that I've kind of been sitting on for the last couple of years, man, because a lot of people don't know. Like, this is also another thing, like, if you know, you know that I work on a lot of flips and edits, a ton of flips and edits. So that's what this show will be tomorrow, just like 45 minutes of me just playing, like, edits that I've been hoarding for, like, 2-3 years now, man. So I'm excited to see people's faces like, yo, he didn't bring no keyboard. Why does he have a DJ controller board? Like, what is he up to? This is an extension of Flwr Chyld. It's just not like all the neo soul stuff, you know. I can
Real like art show.
Yeah.
And I think that's matters. Honestly, I'm glad not only did you get the opportunity to travel, but the fact that you are able to bring that experience here. Because I think a lot of times people prefer that, or people want that. You know, concert is cool, the festival is cool, whatever. But sometimes those intimate moments where you have just you, the person that's doing the mixing and showing the edits, and just that experience where you get the flow of that crowd, and the crowd gets the flow of you, makes for a better
Right.
show. So no, I definitely think it's gonna work out.
I just want to see people move at the end of the day, man. Like, I want to make people feel something. So, like, yeah, bro. I can't wait to see, like, people pulling out their phones trying to Shazam the edits. You can't find that. It's all on my Mac, bro. It's all on my hard drive.
I heard that before. How he get that? How he do that? That's gonna be a lot of those. So I know you're gonna have those moments where Shazam's not gonna work. But again, like I said, I appreciate you coming through.
Thank you for having me, man.
Of course, and always. And once again, your host Tristan Taratino. That's Flwr Chyld. Thank you for coming in. Thank you for listening. We out.
Never Hip a Lame podcast.